Champagne in hand, we toasted to finally being free from debt, dreaming of a future we thought was ours. That's when his mother called, and the real cost of our celebration became terrifyingly clear. The bottle of champagne wasn't expensive, but as the cork flew across our small living room and ricocheted off a picture frame, it felt like the most luxurious drink in the world. Mark laughed, a deep, genuine sound that I hadn't heard in years, and quickly poured the fizzing liquid into two mismatched glasses. We clinked them together, the sound sharp and clear. "To being free," he said, his eyes sparkling. I grinned, taking a long sip. To never eating instant ramen again unless we absolutely want to. We had done it. After 6 long, grueling years of working extra shifts, budgeting every penny, and saying no to almost everything, we had finally paid off the last of our student loans, all $80,000 of them. The weight that lifted off my shoulders was so profound it felt physical. For the first time in our marriage, we were starting at zero. Better than zero, actually. We had a small but growing savings account, earmarked for one thing and one thing only, a down payment on a house, our own little piece of the world, with a yard for a dog and a room that could one day be a nursery. We were halfway through the bottle, sprawled on the couch and dreaming aloud about bay windows and garden plots, when Mark's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at the screen, and the smile instantly vanished from his face. "It's my mom," he said, his voice tight. I sat up, a familiar knot of apprehension forming in my stomach. His mother Janice rarely called with good news. He answered, putting it on speaker like he always did, a habit I both appreciated and dreaded. "Mom, what's wrong? You sound upset." Her voice came through the phone in a frantic, high-pitched wail. "Oh, Mark, it's a disaster, a complete and utter disaster." The story tumbled out between sobs. A pipe had burst in the wall of her apartment building, directly above her unit. Water had been pouring down for hours before anyone noticed. Her ceiling was collapsing, the drywall was soggy, her furniture was ruined, and a collection of vintage photo albums was a pulpy, unsalvageable mess. It sounded truly awful, and I felt a genuine pang of sympathy for her. "Okay, Mom, okay, breathe," Mark said, his voice a soothing balm. "Where are you now? Are you safe?" "I'm at Carol's next door," she sniffled. "But my things, Mark, everything is ruined, and the landlord, he's saying his insurance only covers the structure, not the contents. He said I needed renter's insurance for that." A heavy silence filled our living room. Mark and I had been gently urging her to get renter's insurance for years. It was less than $20 a month. I never got around to it," she whispered, as if reading our minds. Mark's jaw tightened. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small space in front of the couch. "Okay, Mom, don't worry. We'll figure it out. We'll help you, I promise." He ended the call and sank down next to me. The celebratory mood of a few minutes ago completely evaporated. He stared at the wall for a long moment before turning to me. "We need to help her," he said, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "Of course we do," I agreed immediately. "We can go over tomorrow, help her sort through things, see what's salvageable. I can help her find a storage unit and look for a new place." He shook his head, a dark look clouding his features. "No, that's not what I mean, Kate. She needs more than that. She needs money, a lot of it, to replace everything. The furniture, the clothes, the security deposit on a new apartment. She has nothing." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Mark, we can give her a few $100s from our checking account to get by for now, but our savings, that's for the house. We can't touch that." He looked at me as if I'd just suggested we leave his mother on the street. "The house? You're talking about a house right now? My mother is effectively homeless and you're worried about a down payment." The accusation in his voice was a physical blow. I'm not just worried about the down payment, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm worried about us. We just got out of debt. We swore we would never go back. Taking out thousands of dollars from our savings is a huge step backward. So what do you suggest we do? He shot back, his voice rising. Let her sleep in her car? No, we can look at our budget, see what we can cut back on to help her month to month. But we can't just drain our account for her. It's not financially responsible. He stood up, his face flushed with anger. Responsible? My mother is crying on the phone, her whole life soaked in dirty water, and you're talking about being responsible. This is what family does, Kate. They help each other no matter what. And we will help her, but we can't set ourselves on fire to keep her warm. The words were out before I could stop them, and I instantly regretted their harshness. His eyes narrowed to slits. The warmth from earlier was gone, replaced by an icy fury I had rarely seen. You know what? He said, his voice dangerously low. You're right. We shouldn't touch our precious savings. I felt a sliver of relief, thinking he had finally seen reason. But then he continued, and the floor dropped out from under me. We'll just take out a loan. A $10,000 personal loan. We can get approved online in minutes. It's the only way. I stared at him, dumbfounded. A loan? He wanted us to voluntarily plunge ourselves back into the same pit we had just spent 6 years clawing our way out of. Absolutely not, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. Mark, no, please, don't even joke about that. He let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Who's joking? I'm deadly serious. My mother needs me. And if my own wife won't help, I'll do it myself. He pulled his laptop off the shelf, flipped it open on the coffee table, and started typing. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched him navigate to his bank's website. Mark, stop, I pleaded, reaching for the laptop. Don't do this. Don't make a decision for both of us that will affect us for years. We are a team. We need to agree on this. He didn't even look at me. His eyes were glued to the screen, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he filled out the loan application. He put in his information, his income, and then he paused, his cursor hovering. He finally turned to look at me, his expression cold and unreadable. It's already done, he said, his voice flat and empty. I don't need the loan. For a wild, hopeful second, I thought he'd come to his senses, but then he said the words that shattered everything. I transferred her the money an hour ago, from our savings. The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, snuffing out the last remnants of our celebration. The half-empty bottle of champagne on the table seemed to mock me. An hour ago. He had done this an hour ago, which meant while I was happily chilling the glasses, while he was popping the cork, while we were toasting to our future, he was already hiding a monumental secret. He had already made a unilateral decision to shatter the very future we were celebrating. The betrayal was a physical sensation, a cold, heavy stone dropping into my gut. My voice, when I finally found it, was a strangled whisper. How much? He wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the glowing laptop screen as if it held the answers to the universe. Mark, how much did you send her? It doesn't matter, he muttered, starting to close the laptop. I slammed my hand down on the lid, stopping him. It absolutely matters. That is my money, too. That is our life we saved for. How much? He finally looked at me, and his expression was one of stubborn defiance. 15,000. I actually stumbled back a step, my hand flying to my mouth. $15,000. It had taken us over 2 years to save that specific 15,000. 2 years of my double shifts at the hospital, of him taking every freelance coding gig he could find, of us eating pasta and tomato sauce 4 nights a week. It was almost our entire down payment. You You sent her nearly all of our savings without even talking to me?" The question came out as a pained gasp. "She needed it," he exploded, finally getting to his feet and towering over me. "What was I supposed to do, Kate? Let her set up a GoFundMe? Ask her friends for handouts? She's my mother. I take care of her." "And what about me?" I shrieked, the tears I'd been holding back finally breaking free and streaming down my face. "What about us? I am your wife. That wasn't your money to give away. It was ours. Our dream you just set on fire for her." "It's just money. We can make more," he yelled back, throwing his hands up in exasperation. "This is what you don't understand. Family is more important than money, more important than some stupid house we don't even have yet." "This isn't about the money, Mark. Don't you get it?" I sobbed, my voice cracking. "This is about trust. This is about respect. You made a life-altering decision for both of us, and you hid it from me. You smiled in my face and toasted to our freedom while you were lying to me." He recoiled as if I'd slapped him. The anger in his face faltered, replaced by a flicker of something else. Guilt, maybe. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a wall of cold defense. "I did what I had to do," he said, his voice hard. "She's my mom. I'd do it again." There was nothing else to say. The chasm that had just opened between us felt miles wide, too vast to ever cross. We stood there in the ruins of our living room, the celebration turned to a wake, surrounded by the ghosts of our shared dreams. He grabbed his keys from the bowl by the door. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice hollow. "I'm going to go see her," he said, not looking at me. "She needs me. Clearly, I'm not needed here." He walked out, closing the door softly behind him. The click of the lock echoed in the silent apartment, a sound of finality. I stood frozen for a long time, the tears drying on my cheeks. Then, a cold resolve settled over me. He was right about one thing. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the truth. I walked over to the coffee table and picked up his laptop. He'd left it open. The bank's homepage was still on the screen. With trembling fingers, I logged into our joint savings account. My eyes immediately found the transaction line from earlier that evening. Wire transfer to Janice Miller, $15,000. Seeing it there in stark black and white made me feel sick to my stomach. My dream, our dream, quantified and deleted in a single click. I scrolled up, wanting to see the balance before the transfer, wanting to see exactly what we had lost. I kept scrolling, my eyes scanning the list of deposits we had so painstakingly made over the years. Paycheck, deposit. Paycheck, deposit. Freelance gig payout. Then I saw it. Another transfer. Wire transfer to Janice Miller, 500 Derwellers. The date was from 3 weeks ago. My brow furrowed. I didn't remember us agreeing to that. I kept scrolling. Another one. $350 from 2 months ago. My heart began to pound a frantic, terrifying rhythm against my ribs. I scrolled faster and faster, my breath catching in my throat. There were more, dozens of them, stretching back over the last 18 months. Small amounts, 200 here, 400 there, always disguised in the flood of our regular deposits. It added up. It added up to thousands and thousands of dollars, all secretly funneled from our house fund to his mother. The pipe that burst in her apartment wasn't the real disaster. The real flood had been happening right here, in our own bank account for over a year, and I never even knew. I didn't cry. The time for tears was over. A strange glacial calm settled over me as I stared at the screen, at the long list of betrayals. Each line item was a small lie, a tiny cut that had culminated in this one massive, gaping wound. Mark hadn't just given away our money. He had been bleeding our future dry for 1.5 years, all while I worked myself to the bone, believing we were a team, fighting for the same goal. The champagne buzz was long gone, replaced by the bitter taste of deceit. I didn't hesitate. I opened a new tab, navigated to my personal credit union's website. I still had an old account from before we were married and initiated a transfer. I took exactly half of what was left in our joint savings, which was a pathetic few $100s. Then I did the same with our checking account. I calculated my last direct deposit and transferred precisely that amount into my own name. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was a declaration, an amputation. I was severing our financial union, the one he had already secretly dissolved. I methodically took screenshots of all the transfers to his mother, the big one and the dozens of smaller ones, and emailed them to myself. When I was done, I closed the laptop and sat on the couch in the dark, silent apartment, waiting. He came back 3 hours later. He must have expected to find me sobbing, or maybe to have packed a bag and left. He clearly didn't expect to find me sitting calmly on the couch, the living room lit only by a single lamp. "Kate," he said, his voice hesitant. He looked tired and emotionally drained. "I'm sorry I stormed out. I was just upset. Mom is settled at a hotel for now. We can talk in the morning." "We're going to talk now," I said, my voice eerily steady. I gestured to the coffee table, where I had printed out the first page of the bank statement. His eyes followed my hand, and he saw the list of transfers I had highlighted in yellow. He froze. The color drained from his face. What is that?" he stammered, but we both knew he knew exactly what it was. "That is you, Mark," I said, my voice as cold and hard as the stone in my stomach. "That is you, lying to me every single day for 18 months. That is you taking the money I earned from 24-hour shifts and handing it to your mother while I was making budget spreadsheets. That is you making a complete and utter fool out of me." He sank onto the armchair across from me, looking like a man who had just been punched. "Kate, I was going to tell you. It was just... She needed a new transmission for her car, then her water heater broke. It was always something. It was never the right time to worry you." "Worry me?" I laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You weren't worried about me. You were hiding from me. You treated our joint account like your personal slush fund. You treated me like an employee who just needed to keep contributing, not a partner who deserved the truth." He buried his face in his hands. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry, Kate. I can fix this. I'll get a second job. I'll pay it all back to you. We can still get the house. It'll just take a little longer." As he was speaking, his phone, which he'd left on the end table, began to ring. The screen lit up with a picture of his smiling mother. Before he could move, I snatched it up and hit the speakerphone button. "Mark, honey," Janice's voice chirped, sounding remarkably chipper for someone whose life was just ruined. "I was just looking online at the new apartments at Cypress Point. They're a bit pricey, but they have a pool. Since you were so generous, I was thinking maybe we could use a little more to cover the first 3 months' rent so I don't have to worry." Mark looked at me, his eyes wide with horror, silently pleading with me to hang up. I held his gaze, my own expression unyielding, and spoke into the phone. "Janice," I said, my voice clear and final, "there is no more money. The ATM is closed, permanently." There was a shocked silence on the other end, and then a sputtering, "Kate, what are you—" I hung up the phone and placed it gently back on the table. Mark was staring at me, his mouth agape. The full weight of what he had done, of the life he had just detonated, finally seemed to crash down on him. "Kate, please," he whispered, tears now welling in his eyes. "Don't do this. I love you. We can get past this." I stood up and walked to our bedroom. I could hear his footsteps behind me. I opened my closet and pulled out the empty suitcase I had placed on the bed an hour before. "You don't love me, Mark. You love the idea of me. You love the support I provide so you can be the perfect son. But a husband? A partner? You don't know the first thing about being one." I began pulling my clothes from their hangers. He grabbed my arm. "Don't go. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." I looked down at his hand on my arm and then back up at his tear-streaked face. "The $15,000 you gave her," I said quietly. "That was my half of the lie. You owe me that money. I don't care how you get it, but I expect a check. As for us, there's nothing left to fix. You didn't just spend our savings, Mark. You spent our future." I pulled my arm free, zipped up my suitcase, and walked out of the bedroom, out of the apartment, and out of the life we had built on a foundation of his secrets. As I walked down the hallway toward the elevator, I felt a familiar weight lift off my shoulders, but this time it wasn't debt. It was him. And for the first time all night, I finally felt free.